The rain had not decided whether to fall or to hang in the air and watch. It clung to the captain's lashes, beaded on his gorget, softened the world to charcoal and smear. Ahead, the old river bridge showed its ribs where the flood had gnawed away the planks. The water ran dark and quick between the blackened timbers, carrying twigs, a child's doll arm, a strip of red cloth that might once have been a favour. On the far bank, a squat chapel hunched among willows, its stones wet as a frog's back. A candle burned in a narrow slit window, a star caught in a throat. "Hold," the captain said, raising a hand. Leather creaked and chain whispered as the column gathered itself behind him. Horses blew fog. Somewhere downriver, a bell tolled once, the sound thickened by the rain. They were 3 days from the Golden Tooth by his best guess, or 5 if the roads were worse than the scouts swore. The map he carried, oil-spotted, thumb-frayed, had no use for new ruin. Villages notched there were ash here, mills were stumps. The captain had learned to take his bearings from what the flood had left, a line of clay where a field had slumped, a flock of crows that refused to budge from a particular tree. Behind him, beneath a black hood and a waxed cloak, rode the Queen Widow, small in the saddle and silent, her palfrey's ears twitching with every gust. He had not looked full on her face since Riverrun, and he did not intend to now. It was not his to look at. The letters tucked inside his breast, the seal cracked on one, unbroken on the other, said as much. One letter all but sang with courtesy. 2 years, and no vows meanwhile, and safe conduct to the crag. The other coughed its meaning like a man spitting blood. Her belly to be kept still as winter, by teas or by surgeons, or by whatever means necessity might require. He had read that one twice by mistake in a lamp's smoke, and then stuffed it down deep, where it burned cold through wool and mail. "Rivers high," Kedge muttered at his shoulder. Kedge had a face that looked mashed flat by a smith's hammer, suggesting, "Wait for the light and try at the ford upstream." Annoyed, "Upstream is marsh," the captain said. Challenging, "You like your boots sucked off by the mother?" "I don't." He lifted his visor to see the far bank more plainly. 5 men stood by the chapel door, spears butt down in the mud, their cloaks the dun of river folk, patched and tired. No colours, farmers' boots. One had a half helm with a dent like a thumbprint. That was honest, he'd learned. Men who took their dents and wore them told you something about themselves. Banners could lie, dents rarely did. Calling out Parley, called the dented half-helm. His voice was like the bark peeling from a willow, wet, stubborn, inviting. Men on his side of the bridge were moving, Sir Forley's riders pushing forward with shields shouldered, the Queen Widow's palfrey sidestepping neatly as old Nan hissed to her in some stable tongue. The captain lifted his hand and flattened it. "Wait." The riders checked. He saw the anger on their faces and was glad of it. The other thing he saw sometimes, eager cruelty, was not present, not tonight. The rain had washed them as clean as they would be washed. He got to his feet, slowly. "We are bound for the west," he called. "We have letters and seals. We have coin." "Coin spends," the dented helm agreed. "You'll spend some with mother if you like. Confession's cheaper there than on a rope." Kedge spat into the river and rubbed at his shin. "Brotherless bastards," he muttered. "No," said the captain, chuckle. "They've got a brother or two." At the far end of the broken bridge, a woman stepped out from the chapel's shadow. She wore a hood deep and dark enough to be a well you fell into. Beneath it, her face was a smudge the rain refused, pale as winter milk. A half-dozen more figures came with her, rag-wrapped men with scars old and new, and one big fellow with a yellow cloak gone the colour of old straw. He had a broken nose that had healed crooked, and a smile like he remembered what it was to laugh. "Lay down your steel," said the straw cloak, and his voice had the easy gentleness of a man who only grew hard to save time. "You've brought a lady into bad country. That's a sin you can still mend." "We've orders," Kedge said. Chuckle. "Orders got you this far. Strawcloak said. They won't carry you across water. The captain could feel everyone watching. Their men, these men, the river with its 1,000 eyes. He weighed it the way he weighed a rotten beam. What breaks when I step here? He had known outlaws who were nothing but hunger with knives. These weren't those. Their boots were patched with care. Someone had rubbed tallow into the leather of that yellow cloak once upon a time. He smelled not gin but onions. He could work with onions. 2 men only, he said. I'll come to the mother with the ladies' maids and 1 rider. That's all. Leave your swords, Strawcloak said. The captain took the blade his father had bought in Lannisport after 3 goats and a cart of cabbages and laid it down on the black plank between his feet. It looked smaller in the rain. Kedge growled but followed, clanging. Behind, old Nan patted the palfrey's neck and made some small sound that horses loved. The Queen Widow came without protest, her hood never lifting. If she were trembling, it did not reach the reins. They crossed with care around the rope, and the men in the willows did not loose. At the chapel door the dented helm stood aside. The hooded woman moved not at all. Her hands were pale, reddened at the knuckles. Rope had known those knuckles, the captain thought, and he could not have told you how he knew. Inside, the chapel was stone and damp and years. The floor was trodden earth. There were candles jammed into old wine bottles, and a mother carved from riverwood, her face worn smooth by the thumb of every child who had ever feared drowning. Someone had set a loaf and salt on a plank table, and the captain saw old Nan's gaze go to the salt, and then to him, sharp as a pin. He shook his head by a hair. Salt fed hunger. Salt also remembered. Salt was weight. Speak your business, said Strawcloak, ducking inside and bringing with him a wash of river air. We're taking the lady west, the captain said. Safe and untouched, by oath. Untouched, said the dented helm from the door. His voice did something strange to the word, as if the word had done something strange to a girl once. Aye. We've heard how oaths get kept. We have letters, the captain said, and he could hear the stiffness in his own mouth. Seals. Witnessed. Signed beneath the lion. The hooded woman lifted her head just a little. In the candlelight her throat was a ruin, a purpled memory of fingers and rope. The captain saw the angry stitches gone slack long ago, and the way her breath rasped where her voice would not come. She raised 1 hand and tapped 2 fingers twice against her breast, and the Strawcloak nodded as if she had spoken. You had another letter, Strawcloak said, conversational as a man buying onions. Not the kind you read at table. Not the kind a septon blesses. Kedge's hand twitched toward nothing, the place where a sword should have been. You don't know that. We read men, the dented helm said. Letters are for them that like paper. Your lord likes paper. Your lord writes pretty. The lady says paper breaks easy when it's wet. The captain had not thought of the second letter as pretty. He had thought of it as a cold tooth in his breast. He kept his eyes steady. We have teas, he said. The admission surprised him with its own baldness. The maester swore they were to ease the ladies' courses. Old Nan's mouth went thin. The dented helm spat. A man by the mother crossed himself and then looked at his hand, as if unsure how it had done that without asking him. Words, said Strawcloak. Tease is a word. So is fruit. So is never. He looked to the hooded woman again. She did not move. Only the candlelight moved, the slow blink of a tired eye. We can pay, the captain said. The crag will pay more. Men always think that, said Strawcloak, almost kindly, that the West will pay more. We've had coin before. It melts in the mouth and leaves you staring at a rope in a fresh-dug pit. Kedge shifted his weight from his sore shin to his good one. Guessed right, he said, nodding toward the loaf and the salt. The dented helm smiled without his eyes. Did we offer it, or did you see it and go hungry? Men who must say guessed right aloud are men who plan to spit it out again, Strawcloak said. He had dropped the gentleness now, set it aside like a cloak too fine for mud. Here's a right, a river's right. She takes what falls in and keeps it. You brought a lie into her country. She doesn't like to be lied to. We brought a lady, the captain said, suddenly tired. We kept her dry. We kept her from blades and tongues. We kept her small from swelling. We did what men do when lords write letters. That last, the dented helm murmured, is the trouble that keeps turning. The hooded woman raised her hand again. She did not point at the captain. She did not point at Kedge. She pointed to the door and then to the beam above it, where the rain had found a crack and made a slow, everlasting drip. The straw cloak nodded once. "It doesn't have to be the rope," he said, to the captain, to the room, to the woman with the ruined throat, to the river listening. "Not for every man. Sometimes the river will take a man soft. Sometimes a man can choose his way down. But for the ones with paper." "Thoughtful. For the ones with paper," the dented helm agreed. The captain felt something ease inside him, the way a knot eases when you stop pretending your fingers are clever enough to untie it. He thought of the goats his father had sold and the cabbages and the sword bought in Lannisport. He thought of the young queen on the palfrey and her hood that would not lift. He thought of old Nan's hands and Kedge's mashed face and Sir Forley back with the column, patient because he had learned to be. He thought of winter moving down the roads with the same inexorability as this river, cold and without malice. "I'll take the mother," he said. They walked him to the river. The rain had finished deciding what to do and was falling properly now. The ropes the outlaws carried were salted brown and stiff. Kedge swore until a big boy cuffed him and then only ground his teeth instead. The Queen Widow watched from the saddle, still as a drawn breath. Old Nan's eyes were wet and angry and very alive. The river took his knees, his thighs, his belly. It was not cold at first, it was everything. The captain had been born in a dry year and had never liked swimming. He let the men hold him, let the water lift him, and when they pressed his shoulders he went down the way he'd said he would, like a man who kept his own word at last. The river was black and full of the skin of the sky. He opened his eyes into it and saw the candle's star break and smear across the surface above. He heard the bell for the third time, farther away now, pulse slow. He thought, absurdly, of the red cloth he'd seen earlier, fat and cheerful as a flag in spring. He wondered if it had ever been a favour, if it had ever touched a wrist that believed in love. Hands hauled him back up. "You did right," Strawcloak said. "Before the end, not all men do." On the bank, the hooded woman had turned her head toward the Queen Widow. She lifted her hand a last time. 2 fingers touched the ruined place at her throat and then opened, palm up, offering nothing and everything. The Queen Widow's head dipped beneath the hood, a motion so slight a man might have imagined it. "Go," said the dented helm to old Nan. "West by the deer path. Keep off the road. Men with paper ride the roads." "And if men with paper follow?" old Nan asked, voice rough with age and river night. "Then the river will see them," said the dented helm. "And we will see the river." The straw cloak squeezed his shoulder once and then let go. The men in the willows melted back into the green. The bell tolled a 4th time, a 5th. The rope that had tripped Kedge bobbed and went under, reappeared farther down, a fat water snake writhing away to where the river bent like an elbow. When they were done with him, they laid him on the bank under the chapel wall. The hooded woman stood over him for a little while, rain jewelling the ragged hem of her cloak. Her face was a pale blur beneath the hood, a ship's lantern behind dirty glass. She did not speak. She did not have to.